This is World Questions from the Greek capital, Athens. More than 500,000 people have left this country since the economic crisis of a decade ago. Greece is ageing, and whilst thousands of migrants press up against its borders, the population is shrinking fast. Can Greece find a way out of this new crisis? Welcome to BBC World Questions from Greece, a country often called the birthplace of Western civilization, a nation that draws 40 million tourists a year to its stunning scenery, glorious beaches, and of course its antiquities. Amidst all of that, modern challenges press in on this southern European nation. Low wages, a high cost of living, and sky-high housing costs have driven hundreds of thousands to emigrate. Wildfires tear through ever hotter summers, and the country is the first port of call for migrants from Africa and the Middle East seeking a better life. To debate these challenges and others is our panel. Sofia Zakaraki, Minister for Education and Religious Affairs for the governing New Democracy Party. Pavlos Geroulanos, former minister and serving politician with the opposition PASOK. Ksenia Kounalaki, journalist and columnist with the daily Katamerini newspaper. And Yannis Koutsomitis, journalist and European affairs analyst. Welcome to our distinguished panel. Let's go to our first question, and it comes from Alexandros Vagenas.
My question is, our population is declining geometrically. More and more people, young ones in particular, choose to move abroad to live a decent life. So how can this phenomenon be addressed?
Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you once again.
The population is projected to drop by a quarter by 2050, something that's been described by the Prime Minister as an existential challenge. The Prime Minister announced another round of tax breaks and bonuses for those having children just a few days ago. Meanwhile, around 600,000 people have left in the last decade or so, and many young people continue to talk of leaving it. I'm going to turn first to Sofia Zakaraki, the Minister for Education and Religious Affairs. Sofia.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you, Alex, for the question. I would say it was really startling, Alexander, to see the fall in rates. It hasn't happened overnight, and I think we should have been even more cautious in the past, where we had seen the fall in birth rates since 1981, with a huge, of course, decline and a steep decline in the past 10 years. But can't you reverse that? How can you do that unless you start creating new jobs, well-paid jobs? And I think we have increased the minimum wage 5 times in the past 6 years, and we have tried to lower, of course, the criteria for getting a mortgage, for trying to pay back, of course, to getting your first house. It has been very difficult because we have seen increased rent prices for a young family. Of course, this is always a daunting task, but we try to improve childcare, which is very important for that, increasing maternity leave. I really hope that not just for Athens, but also for other areas, the villages and the regions, that we are giving extra emphasis, on tax cuts and, of course, more incentives in order to have a house and be able to sustain that. It will help somebody make the decision. It's not easy. It is also a mindset issue.
Thank you very much. Ksenia Kounalaki from Katamerini newspaper.
I will bring in another point, because I was reading a report stating that if we don't keep accepting immigrants in the same speed and numbers that we have up to now, the population will be half by 2100. This is a crucial point to me. We have to be a welcoming country to immigrants and integrate immigrants. Otherwise, our pension system, our health system, our workforce will diminish. It's very important to bring in immigrants who are going to support, the whole welfare state.
Thank you very much. Yannis Koutsomitis, analyst and journalist.
Well, of course, the economic question is a big issue for young couples when they decide to have children or not. And the latest measures by the Greek government are, of course, in the right direction. I know people that they can't afford to have their proper food for their children, and now these measures certainly help. We need more, of course, but the main question, I think, is a mindset. It's the philosophy of the Generation Z, that they don't have a clear path of where the future lies for them. They don't know what lies ahead. They feel so insecure about the future, so they're afraid to go together and have a family. So we need to work as a community, as cities, as a civil society, to talk with these people, with the 20s, even teenagers, and understand why they're so afraid of the future.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Pavlos Geroulanos from the opposition PASOK.
If there's 4 things that one needs to raise a family, it's a lot of love, some money, some time, and a village, a community. Without those 4 things, insecurity creeps in. And the one thing that has been destroyed to a very large extent because of the 3 crises is the sense of community, the sense of village, the village that you need to raise the child. Parents and grandparents are now much more likely to be trying to have jobs, so they cannot hold children. This is one of the primary reasons for the fears associated with raising a family in Greece. The schooling system, the amount of money you need to just get a child through the schooling system. When you ask Greeks who have left Greece and are abroad, why aren't they coming back? The numbers in the economy are better, the prospects of jobs start seeming more competitive and so forth. Institutions are failing in Greece. The judiciary is problematic. The idea of creating a company and being able to make it sustainable is problematic. Bureaucracy is still a huge factor in keeping people back. This is not a society where you feel you can make your dreams come true.
I want to go to the audience, if I may. Can I first of all go to Alex, who was our questioner?
Well, basically, I will use a philosophical expression, so a quote, which says that if a flower doesn't bloom, you don't change the flower, you change the pot. You change the environment around it. So that is my answer, basically.
I see a woman right in the front putting her hand up. We'll speak to you next, if we may, madam.
My name is Maria. We immigrated to the United States in 2015-16. We came back a few years later because in our case, our kids were old enough and we already had a support system. My family, the school they went to and everything. So I would have to agree with Mr. Geroulanos that it is what you build underneath. They need a support system. I don't think the solution is to bring more immigrants so they pay for our pensions, because it wouldn't be Greece anymore. And if you mess with the mix a lot, then you have a different country a few years down the line.
I see the lady there in white.
Hello, my name is Joanna. Statistics show that the wealthier a country becomes, the more educated, the fewer children they have. And that's it. And I think accepting more people is, whether people like it or not, will have to be part of the solution.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to take our next question, and it comes from Nick Catafores.
Thank you. It's generally said that tourism is Greece's heavy industry. However, growth of tourism puts great pressures and increasing pressures upon the infrastructure. What alternatives to growth are there for Greece?
Thank you very much indeed. We've got a lot of questions about tourism and its impacts. Worth reminding our audience, 40 million tourists came to this small European country last year. They contributed an estimated $25 billion to the economy, but they've been blamed for a strain on environmental resources and a particular issue here in Athens on pushing up rents through the use of short-term lets. Yannis Koutsomitis.
Well, we can't say that Greece can live without tourism. It's been a tradition since ages, but now in the latest 2 or 3 years, it's gained tremendous measures, and we think we need to think deeper on how we can work on having a tourism that is viable also for local society and also for the people that are visiting Greece. What is wrong? Governments do not tend to invest in infrastructure as much as feeling happy about the income that tourism brings. So there is no long-term planning about how we can deal with millions of tourists coming in. There are islands that are overwhelmed by tourism arrivals, and they can't cope anymore with water supply.
Thank you very much. Pavlos Geroulanos from the opposition PASOK party. The question, in fact, from Nick was what alternative paths to growth are available to find other ways to make money?
Well, actually, I think we have a lot of underutilized resources in Greece. One of the areas that I find where value is being lost as we speak is a very vital one for the future of Greece, and that is agriculture. We're losing our agricultural population, and as a result, whole areas of Greece are now deserting. Only old people live in Thrace, Western Macedonia. Greek foods are associated with quality, and the fact that we have at least 6 Greek products in the best supermarkets and the best restaurants in the world, I believe that tourism is underdeveloped in Greece. There are whole parts of Greece that could develop a completely different kind of tourism. We could be leaders in health, restoration. Local government, local institutions are not working together, and as a result, we can't develop types of tourism that could easily develop parts of Greece that are now deserting.
Pavlos, thank you very much indeed. Ksenia Kounalaki from Katerini newspaper. Thank you. Thank you. Do you believe that there is too much tourism in Greece? Do you think the strain on Greece's environment and infrastructure is too great?
Definitely. If you fly over Mykonos, you won't see like a bare spot of land anymore. I used to go to Mykonos, and it was like you could find beaches where you were only by yourself back in the 80s or something. I'm not nostalgic, I don't say that, but we have to preserve, the character of the Greek islands. Also, another thing which we didn't mention is that Greek themselves can't afford anymore to go to the islands because of over-tourism, During July and August, the cost is enormous. We can't afford to go there. So we have to preserve the exclusivity of the country. If you walk in the streets of Santorini, sometimes you could be anywhere in the world.
Look, lots to talk about there for the Minister, Sofia Zakaraki. The question, of course, was about how useful tourism is still for Greece and whether there are other ways for Greece to develop.
And I think that we've heard some very important, notions and ideas. And I would say that I agree with you. We do need to diversify. We have some massive numbers of people just going into a few places, whether there are so many opportunities. And I was really admiring the situation and the opportunities you have in northern Greece with wine tourism, with the food industry, with everything that has to do with adventure and sports tourism. And of course, you also have amazing ventures that are now taking place because younger people wanted a change. They decided to go back, start their agro-tourism business. And I think that these are some lighthouses of the hope that we can have in order to diversify and not just be talking about really the burdened by over-tourism.
Thanks very much indeed to our panel. I want to hear from the audience. Mass tourism has been part of the Greek way of life now for decades, but it may be very different to those who live here. So you first, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Plutarchos. Putting the tourism aside, I think talking about alternatives, I think in the Greek dialogue, as a society, we need to start talking again about R&D, about sciences. I'm in life science, I'm a doctor, I have done research for a lot of years, and I know that we keep talking about how many scientists we have abroad, but we don't have the incentives, we don't have the institutions. We cannot have everybody becoming a restaurateur or a hotelier rather than a doctor or a scientist.
Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Thank you, sir. And over there, madam.
Good evening, my name is Aristea. I believe Greece is becoming an economic monoculture when it comes to tourism. In islands like Crete, valuable and specialized skill sets, especially in agriculture, are being lost to the tourism industry. And if there ever is a crash in the tourism industry, what are these young people going to then be able to turn to?
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And let's go to our next question. It comes from Cristiana Vlioria.
Hello, thank you. Over the last few years, there's a cultural shift in Europe towards less or even anti-immigration. What would your practical suggestions be to balance the overwhelming influx and the need for a boost to the workforce? I'd just like to premise that I'm a doctor. I work in the center of Athens, and I have a lot of immigrant patients, and I witness every day the difficulties they face.
Thank you, Christiana. Thank you very much indeed. It's worth saying, Greece has been now for many, many years on the front line of incredible levels of migration. It has taken in, I think, around 25,000 migrants so far this year, 10,000 alone on the island of Crete. The state of emergency was declared by the government, meaning that no asylum would be granted to African migrants. That lasted for 3 months. We wait to see if it'll be renewed. Pavlos Gerolanos from the opposition PASOK party.
First, let me say that unlike images that have gone abroad, Greece has been actually quite incredible in bringing immigrants in and treating them fairly well. I mean, if you think of the population of Greece and how many people have come into Greece in the past 10 years or 20 years, it's quite incredible what an increase in population, what that has caused in terms of local communities where you have schools with a majority of immigrant students and so forth. It's been a challenge, but for the most part, we've had very little very few social problems. We have treated them better than some northern European countries where very few people come in and where there's an amazingly harsh fascist reaction towards these people. And I believe that comes from the idea that if there's a value that we hold most in Greece, that's our appreciation for life, for humans. That said, there are some very quick solutions that I think we should definitely invest in. My wife is Syrian. It is insane that this woman has raised 2 Greek children and has to remember rivers of Greece that I've never learned about in order to become a Greek citizen. It is preposterous. I'm not insecure about Greek culture at all. We have managed through time to inspire with our values, with our way of thinking, with our love for other human beings, people to stay in Greece and become Greeks.
Pavlos, may I ask you briefly, do you support the state of emergency that was declared by the New Democracy government?
No, but that's for different reasons. I don't believe it's effective.
Ksenia Kounalaki from the Katamarini newspaper.
I will be even more critical than Pavlos. I don't agree in the freezing of the asylum process. It's also internationally, it's against the international law. You can't do that. I think in the last years we see a rightist, a conservative turn of the Mitsotakis government, which started off more centrist. Then we had the Pylos shipwreck where hundreds of people drowned, and it was because of the handling
There have been prosecutions following that action, haven't there? And I think the government has denied any official policy of pushing either boats or individuals back.
Exactly, yes. And it's always, it's not our fault. It's always the Turks, or there was an accident, or it was themselves. They have themselves to blame.
Do you accept the concerns that were voiced by one member of the audience earlier about the numbers, what is described by our questioner as an overwhelming influx, the numbers and the dilution or a challenge to Greek culture?
No, I don't agree to the challenge to the Greek, probably to the Greek authorities, because they have to process a lot of asylum seekers. That's a challenge. But immigration is not a problem. It's a phenomenon. You can't stop it. It has been here forever. So we have to accept it and find ways and processes to accept it.
Sofia Zakharaki, Minister of Education and Religious Affairs.
First of all, let me just comment. I do not feel that I'm actually a rightist, and I do not feel that I'm not supporting human rights or even the increase of participation of migrant children in the Greek public school system. And during my tenure as a deputy minister, we have seen a rise of 20% participation of young migrants, and I feel very honored that it was during my time that we succeeded in that. Number two, I do feel that Greece has actually been at the forefront of battling, with a lot of pressure which was disproportionate. So, Christiana, in the school system, we took the decision, it was taken by me just a couple of months ago, that we're gonna have the reception classes reinforced with a psychologist, with another language teacher, and at the same time, for the younger people around the age of 15 that come to the second chance schools or the vocational schools, that we're gonna accept them even without their full papers. You asked about, practical means, and I do feel that education can play this vital role in reversing probably some people that have started thinking negatively.
Can I ask you about the state of emergency that was declared and the ban on migrants from Africa claiming asylum as a result of that? It was a temporary thing. It's 3 months. We'll see if it gets renewed.
It was a temporary thing.
Do you believe it has worked?
The numbers were reduced. So I would say that it was a state of emergency, yes, a huge influx of people. We had to take this austere measure, but of course, at the same time, talking to the countries that these people come from in order to be able to strike a balance. I do feel that there should be a balance, and I do feel that, of course, the European Union should do more.
Thank you very much indeed. Yanis Koutsomitis, an analyst and journalist.
Well, there are certain reports that the Greek economy needs about 300,000 new people coming in order to support growth and new jobs and new businesses. But the real question is, where do these people need to come from? Do these people need to be desperate young people from Somalia, from Sudan, and they have no knowledge either of language or of European culture, they occasionally do not respect the rule of law, the culture of Europe? We need to have a filter, and we need, as Europe, to set up some camps in Northern Africa in order to have screening of people coming in. We need to have people coming in, but we can't afford to have everyone come in.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Can I go back to our questioner? Christiana asked the question.
I'd like to impart my experience in the center of Athens regarding migrants. It is very difficult for them. A lot of them don't speak Greek. We don't have any translators that can help them. A lot of them do come under the status of PAIPA, so they don't have an AMCA, that's a social security number. Sure. They have no access to healthcare. They can't be vaccinated. Some of them do want to integrate. They do want to go to schools. They want their children to go to school. We try to help them. We cannot always help them. If they ask to learn Greek, we don't have a place that we can refer them so that they can learn. So it's really frustrating for us to try and find a solution.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Christiana. I want to hear from the audience. See the lady there in a sort of patterned blue dress. Yes, madam.
When it comes to immigration, we need to understand that sometimes we need to adopt some standards. Canada accepts immigrants, but they have some standards saying that, for example, I'm going to accept people who can contribute to the economy, but then we also have refugees and asylum seekers. Greece is a country that has signed the treaty that is against torture, inhuman, and degrading treatment against humans. But if we see the circumstances that people are under in the centers that we keep them, or in the island of Lesbos, for example, there we see that the only thing that they do is suffer.
Madam.
Hello, my name is Christina. Regarding immigration, I do realize it's a problem, and it's a problem for the whole of Europe, or probably the whole Western world. But at the same time, usually people do not want to leave the house, their home country. And it seems that we're only listening to ways to hold people back, build walls, create camps, but there do not seem to be any policies to help people want to stay, to build a school somewhere in Africa. These people just want to survive, and we cannot blame them for that, for wanting something better.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you. That is all we have time for in this edition of World Questions Greece. I'm Johnny Diamond. Thank you very much.